First, a couple of weeks ago, you teased us with the wig company commercial, and you refused to play that. Now you're talking about a parody
I'll send
song.
it to you, Carl. I'll send it to you.
And then listeners, I'll make sure that I send it to everybody else. Expect it in the next email blast. No.
Guys, check out this wig company. It's amazing.
I'm in the market.
I'm in the market.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Carl.
It's been a long time.
Has it?
Yeah. It's been a long time since we recorded the last episode about 3 minutes ago.
Well, I know it's been a long time since I've rock and rolled. Down. Been a long time since I hit the stroll. No? All right. Whatever. Just a little Zeppelin for you.
I was just trying to think of like how long can I be intentionally awkwardly silent and just see how far you take that. Just see how, like, if you go...
I get to the guitar solo.
Okay, I was wondering, like, if I just wait it out, will you feel so uncomfortable that you'll not only finish that song, but then, like, go into the next one as well?
Yeah, what's the next one on that record? Black Dog or something? Or is that the one before that? I don't remember.
Wait.
Zeppelin fans are cringing.
Well, we'll... Oh, wait, no, it's Battle of Evermore.
Yes. What a great record.
Yeah, so let's pretend that didn't happen, and I'm just going to say... Yes, I was wondering if I just let it go. I was hoping I just let it go and then sit here awkwardly and watch you go through the entirety of rock and roll, and then also start going into the Battle of Evermore, just because you didn't know, you couldn't stop. I was hoping you just could get on this train and just would not.
When it comes to Zeppelin, there's a chance I couldn't stop. So that's a fair point.
So, today's topic. This is something that I was dealing with last night and actually earlier this morning as well when I was listening back to a track that I'm working on. And there is, we talked about the portfolio a couple of weeks ago, and something that I feel like we can talk about quite a bit are reference mixes. But I wanted to talk about the creative decision behind when to follow a reference mix and when not to follow a reference mix, or specifically when to, I guess what we think of when we're going through and saying, okay, I like X, Y, and Z about this reference, and I think that can apply, but A, B, and C, I want it to be different than that. I intentionally want to kind of differentiate it from there.
So when you're saying, I just want to clarify, because when you talk about reference mixes, you could be talking about the artist mix or the producer mix, or you could be talking about a reference of I don't know, Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah. So I think it applies to both. And I was initially thinking when I first brought this up, I was thinking about, comparing it to a released song that, of an artist that the artist likes or that I like. But then also, I wasn't even thinking about this, but yesterday I was working with an artist client, a mixing client of mine, and we were having the kind of conversation about the rough mix. So right. I think it actually applies to both.
Cool.
And so I feel like for me, it's always a tricky judgment call that doesn't always have a very clean answer. And it's a lot of trial and error to decide what kind of inspiration I want to take from the reference versus saying, no, this is not necessarily objectively better or worse, but just maybe this is something that is going to help this be its own identity. Or the more difficult thing, which probably a lot of us have happened a lot, it's when the artist has a love for the rough mix, but also has a love for reference mixes that are nowhere near each other.
The ultimate combination.
Yeah. So that little chuckle you gave made me feel like you've dealt with that before, Benjamin.
I don't know, actually. Probably. Really? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I can't think of an example, but I think so.
Okay. Yeah. It happens to me all the time. It's not all the time. It's happened to me more times than I wish it happened to me.
More common would be like, this is a rough mix, and like these are the references, than anything else. That for me, like that's most of the things I'm dealing with. Usually, I'm not trying to like beat a rough mix, and usually I am like being told like, oh, we like this, but I mean, also sometimes it's just like, do your thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, also maybe it is a stylistic thing too, because I feel like for myself, I guess let me say this: it happens to me the most often when it's a self-producing artist, and because I work in a lot of like pop adjacent styles, that tends to be
right.
I tend to
Self-producing
do-
artists are just like because they have enough skills to be dangerous, right?
Yeah, yeah. So like the one I was working on last night or yesterday afternoon with this client, it was, there's a lot of charm and things in the rough mix that he liked, but the references that he gave were not like that. Like he liked the balance of the rough, but the balance of the rough was very, very, very different from all of the references. And it can be a very difficult conversation to have if you don't know how to be patient with them,
Yeah.
and it can be very as creatives, as passionate, emotionally driven creatives. It's very easy to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? These are two different things. Like, it's very easy to get snippy. Very easy to get snippy. And I think the good thing about me experiencing that so many times is that I've had a lot of practice explaining it and trying to not be snippy about it. So yeah, I mean, like that's what happened yesterday. But I think today, last night and this morning, I was really thinking about it from the perspective of, having songs that we really like and trying to kind of like, not that we're trying to sound like that, but there's something in that song that we really do like. And then when you listen back to, your own finished version and you're like, oh, this sounded cool on its own, and almost like you're our own version of demoitis, and trying to break free from our own demoitis that we get so bad at artists for having, but then we get it too. And
Totally.
Trying to decide, okay, well, out of all the things about our song that we like, compared to all the things from the reference that we were trying to, encapsulate, how do we decide what stays and what goes? How do we decide what do we change versus what do we keep? Because it's, it is differentiating that song and making it unique.
So so do you have like a good example maybe of like of a reference song, and then maybe something you kind of took from it?
Yeah. So the song that I was working on last night and this morning, I don't want to say who it's for yet, but doing a remix for one of my favorite artists, which is really fun. And the reference that I had in mind, I've been on a really big Empire of the Sun kick, who I love, 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 love. And they have this, it's kind of like the perfect like bullseye for the kind of stuff that I like to work on, because their music is always like, the vocals are always really catchy. The percussion elements are always really cool. There's always so much like texture and nuance. Like it really is just like spot on for the stuff that I love. And I was trying to channel that in this remix I was doing for another artist. And I got it to the point where I'm like, this feels great. Like it definitely feels like me. It doesn't sound like an Empire of the Sun song. But I could, I was exploring a lot of the kind of like bit crushed drum sample sounds. I was really trying to push myself to be way more minimalist on this with it. I tend to be a bit of a maximalist, and the end result still feels pretty wall of sound, because that's just like, this is how I am and where my ears take me. But it was, I was taking influence from the simplicity of the arrangement from the other artist, applying it to this remix. But then when I go and I listen back and I realize my mix is so bright, and there's so many cool things. There's so much like a lot of clarity. I mean, it's a very clear mix. I'm really happy with that. But listening back to, some of the songs that I originally had as my inspiration, it's a lot brighter than that. And also I feel like the not just the overall master, but like my drums in general. Like my drums and my instruments just feel a lot brighter relative to the vocals, for example. And I don't dislike it, but I'm like, I'm questioning myself there. And then I go back and I listen to the original version of the song that I'm remixing, and the master of that is also fairly dark. And knowing that when this comes out, it's gonna be, I don't know if it'll end up being on like a deluxe version or it might be just like a standalone single, but I don't want it to sound wildly off from the rest of the songs, the rest of the collection too. Yeah. So now I'm in this like internal struggle of, okay, is it like a total like a master thing where I could just tweak the EQ on the master bus because I just went a little too ham on it, or is it something where I go through and I'm like, oh no, I need to just really tame instrument groupings and try to get closer to that balance. But also like thinking about the stuff that I've done before, my stuff tends to be a little bit bright and fun. And the vibe of this song that I was going for, like I was really trying to dig into very playful, happy music, but the whole like lyrical element of this song, like the whole thing is about like basically like just not wanting to be social and like just I don't want to go anywhere, I don't want to do anything, like I don't want to give away the lyrics, so like I don't want to be too specific, but it's just like I'm trying to create this juxtaposition of the happiness of the instrumental and also like the happiness of and playfulness of the vocal melodies, but juxtaposing that to the lyrical content. So also like I don't want to get too dark because if I make it too dark, then it's not going to have as much of that juxtaposition that I want to have. So I have all these different kind of like competing, emotional reasons and artistic reasons behind the choices for something as simple of like, oh, I think it's too bright.
Yeah.
So it's, that's kind of where the thing I'm kind of struggling with at the moment. And I wanted to ask you, like, when you're either given references, whether it's a rough mix or it's, a released song that they're referencing, like, what are some of the things that you prioritize for yourself, and how do you approach that?
I don't know. Well, so it's a great question. I guess I do know, but maybe I know a little bit. I'm just like problem solving for you. I'm just thinking you should try to like a pass where you just like get everything darker and just play it and see if it gives you the same emotional response. You know what I mean? As the one that you did, and like try to like give yourself another day or something, and then listen to both of them back to back and like get some objectivity. Yeah, that's sort of my like problem solving hat on. That's not what you asked for, but that's what I'm giving you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I would ever get so into the weeds about like if it's brighter. I mean, maybe that's not even into the weeds, but
it's pretty significant. I'll say that.
Yeah, when I'm listening to like something that's a reference, I don't know. Does this kick drum feel like the kind of kick drum that is appropriate for this sort of a vibe? Maybe it's specific like to kinds of instruments and their sounds. Okay, if we're going for like a surfy sound or like a beach guitar sound, like what is that going to sound like? And so you listen to a bunch of references that sound beachy, and then you kind of come up with a guitar tone that is in that ballpark. But then inevitably it changes. You know what I mean? Like inevitably you're gonna make it fit the song and fit like what you know how to do best. Yeah. So you'll end up getting some sort of mishmash. I think I heard like Phineas talk about this in an interview. It's like I try to do this, and as I'm attempting to do this, I end up doing this, which is really just me. And it's like halfway there, but like with my own like biases, and then it becomes like what I sound like. So I feel like that's what ends up happening for me a lot in the production stage of things. So like if that beachy vibe thing as an example, like working on this is a song that's still in progress of like we started off trying to make it very beachy, and like it ended up being very like you know, but with like the reverberated guitars, which was a vibe. It's just because it fit the song better than trying to like do like a fast, fast drummy thing. So, I don't know, like it's sort of like, it's hard to answer that question. So for that song, I guess the inspiration and what we took from the reference was, this is a production, not a mix, but was just the reverberant guitars and the kind of genre that echoes, and for a mix, it could be like, okay, like we want it to sound like an R&B song, so it's going to have a rounder, fuller low end, and it's going to be less clicky. And if it's, I don't know, if it's like a heavy rock song, then I might let's make this a bit more compressed, a bit more saturated, a bit more like, let's make the snare be a little brighter. It really sort of depends. So I guess I am listening to those Gestalt things, and sometimes it's spectral, and sometimes it's just like a vibe. Like there's this one thing in this song that's like really interesting and unique, and maybe it's like the intimate vocals, and maybe the intimate vocals on my song is less dry and it's more reverberant, but it's still like the dominant thing that's drawing you in. So it kind of can go in any direction. I don't really have like it's hard to like answer this question, because I feel like it could be anything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's kind of maybe the reason for the question. It's like, it is so hard. Like, I feel like we'll all, everybody listening and yourself and myself probably all agree, like, yeah, there is no one priority list of like how to interpret a reference mix. Like, yes, but we all do it. We all interpret reference mixes, whether we're doing it intentionally or we're just comparing it to other stuff that we've, as a listener, that we've enjoyed, and that's influenced our tastes and our preferences. So either way, like whether we have a like explainable, whether we have an explainable framework that we go through, or it is just like a gut feeling, it's still something that we interpret and take action on. So that's why I think, I don't necessarily have an answer for like the kind of questions I'm even asking you. I think it's more like, I want to bring to light the fact that this is something that we all do instinctively, no matter what.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more that we try to articulate what we've noticed about ourselves and what we notice about our choices, I think that is always really valuable information for ourselves, but also maybe helps us to get closer to the goal sooner, because we're more conscious of it.
Yeah. And I'm curious if you use one of these reference mix plugins. Like I forgot what's called, the one from Plugin Alliance, like Metric AB or something. Mm-hmm. Are you interested in those things? Like, do you do them? And if so, does it help you?
I've done it. There was one time, I'm really sad this song never came out, but a client I was working with for years and years and years and years, we did sort of like kind of just like a fun challenge for ourselves, where we tried to recreate Terrible Lie by 9 Inch Nails, like from their first record. I love that song, but we were trying to like see how close to the original we could get it. And because of that, I was actually using, I think I maybe got a trial of the Metric AB, or I did something. It might have been either a plugin, or it might have just been like dropping it in my session. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to be more consciously like matching it, because that was the challenge of it. It was like, how close can we make this?
And that's a great challenge to do, by the way, just because you will learn so much.
And I remember there was one project I did. This is probably 9 years ago now. I got hired to do, this is when I was still, I think this is when I just left cheerleader, and I was like, I hadn't quite gotten into like the full production swing of things yet. It was like, I was in touring band for a while, and like I just left the band, and I was just like kind of teaching lessons and like nothing in the studio. Like all of a sudden I went from, for a long time, I was like a hired gun, session drummer, and like doing a lot of gigs, like a lot of live gigging. Joined this band, really focused on that for a couple of years. And then when I left that, it wasn't like I just immediately jumped back into like all the live gigging. I was in a different city now. And I was just like, I was at this kind of like crossroads section, but I didn't know where I wanted to go. It was less of a crossroads and more of like dropped in like the center of a city, you know? And I did a project where somebody hired me to make like a karaoke backing track for a song. And it was by far the least efficient thing I've ever done. I think I got paid like $100 to reproduce this song, and it took me like 20 hours. It was comically inefficient, and I sucked at it, and I didn't enjoy it. But I said yes, I was going to do it. So I wanted to do it, wanted to try it, see if this was for me. Spoiler alert, it was not for me. But in that case, like, yeah, I had to like have a reference. I was always, again, trying to make it as similar as possible. But other than those two kind of, specific situations where I was actively undergoing the challenge of trying to make it as accurate to the original as possible, usually I just drop the rough mix into my mix template and just like I have it at the top of the session and muted. This is something that a little thing I got from Andrew Mari years ago, where it just I have two blank tracks at the top, and one is labeled, I think one is labeled ref and the other one is labeled CB mix. So it's just like if there's the reference track, usually the rough mix, I have it in there. So, and it's muted at all times. And then if I want to just like quick A/B it, I can just solo that track, and then when I unsolo it, it'll mute it again. So it'll just like I can just kind of check it that way.
Yeah.
And then like the CB mix track underneath it is if they're like, oh, I really loved what you did for the vocal delay in mix 3 or whatever, then I can drop my mix in there too. So I can also like listen back and compare it to my own one.
Smart.
But that's usually it. I think when I do listen to references, I usually just pull it up on Spotify. I very rarely will actually like buy it and like put it into the session, because I don't want to get too in the weeds with it, because I know they're different songs. Like they're different songs. They have their own unique characters. So like I want to try to get the vibe of what I'm listening for, and not be tempted to literally, go back and forth A B until I'm crazy.
Yeah. I like that. And also I think there's a time where you do want to do more of it, and there's a time where you want to do less of it. And I think at the very beginning, when you're learning about like compression and what like a full mix sounds like, I think it is helpful to listen to references more. I'm like thinking back, because like at the beginning of my journey, I don't know if I should admit this, but I made a parody song of Coldplay, Paradise. And it was the parody was that they're just ripping off Radiohead. So it was like Parasites. And it was like U2, like they're ripping off U2 and Radiohead. So let me make a song called Parasites. Maybe I'll send you with a private link at some point. But
no, hold on. First, a couple of weeks ago, you teased us with the wig company commercial, and you refused to play that. Now you're talking about a parody song.
I'll send it to you, Carl. I'll send it to you.
and then listeners, I'll make sure that I send it to everybody else. Expect it in the next email blast. No,
guys, check out this wig company. It's amazing.
I'm in the market.
I'm in the market. Amazing. Well, they make excellent wigs, or as religious Jews like to call them, shaitels. You could look it up, Google it. In terms of so I made this parody song of Paradise called Parasites, and I thought I did such a good job, because I I did all like the parts, I did the synths, I did the drums, I did the bass, I did the vocal, and then I listened to like when I was all done and after it had been released or whatever, I went on to YouTube and listened to the original one. I was like, oh, this is so much. Oh, this is a way better mix. Like this is such a good mix. It's probably like Michael Brower or something, and like kicked ass. And like, oh, like that's what like well compressed drums sound like. That's what like a bit like a bass should sound like. And so like just like having recreated something without referencing it was like a big lesson for me of like, I actually don't know everything, and like I don't have all this shit together. And so like I think there's a time to listen and just understand what all that stuff really should sound like. But then once you understand it and you have like a sound, like and this could be even your own sound, you don't necessarily need to go too strict with references, because I at this point I never really I sometimes, but I rarely ever like metric A/B, just because I just do my mix because I know it's going to sound professional, it's going to sound like me, and if there's a reference, it's usually something like verby guitar or an intimate vocal or like a big bass or something, and it's not something that I'm trying to like really mimic the way another song, very specifically the way another song has done it, unless the artist specifically says like, can we get a kick drum like this? That's like a very specific example, or snare like this. But yeah, and in the end, the song has to be unique, and I think it's more unique to kind of like once you've gone past that first stage of like, okay, now I know what compressed drums should sound like, to make something that is unique sounding and special for that song.
So now I'm going to go against myself and actually say, maybe I should do something like that for this particular the remix that I'm doing, because like I said earlier, I'm not sure how it's going to be released. I'm not sure if it's going to be like part of a deluxe thing or like on its own. But either way, it's going to be, in the same kind of like the same collection as the rest of the album. So maybe it would be beneficial for me to do it just from a 30,000 foot like mastering.
Yeah, mastering level,
mastering level kind of thing. Just to, and again, not to be like, ooh, like I need to cut, 2.43K by half a dB. Like not in that sense, but just like, like I can tell like this is like significantly brighter, or like, oh, the drums sound really thin on mine because they're so bright. Or maybe it's everything's too scooped, and just not that I need to try to match it, but just as, just context and some, almost, I don't want to say like brainstorming, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a good way to think of it. Like maybe like brainstorming for like what I could try to see if it feels better. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Sounds like a good plan. Like the broad strokes, metric A/B style. Get in there, see what it's like. Almost like when you're comparing a master to a mix. I'm like, oh, cool. The master did this. The mix did this. Like I like this better in the mix. I like this better in the master. Cool. Maybe let's split the difference. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm interested.
Cool. I want to hear the original and the finished version, Carl. So.
Okay.
And then when you do that, I'll release the wig. The wig.
Okay.
Release the wigs.
Can I remix that next?
Oh God, no. The person who hired me will definitely not give me permission to do that. I'll tell you that much. Because I actually she contacted me recently about another project, and she said not my best work is what she said to me. Good stuff.
That's great.
Anyways, Carl, this is I think I have to run, so I think we should probably wrap this episode up. But any last thoughts before we close this out?
My only last thought is I am excited to get off this call. Not because I want to get off this call, but because I want to. I've got 20 minutes till I have another call, so I want to pull up the session and just like
hell yeah,
do some A/Bing. I'm excited.
I love that you're excited. That's what it's all about.
Despite
when you're fired up, you forgot about how tired you are when we started this call 2 podcasts ago.
Thanks for reminding me, Ben.
No, now look how revved up you are. You're pumped.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
I'm the coach now.
Yeah. Thanks,
you got
thanks,
this,
Coach.
Carl.
Thanks, Coach.
Carl. Look at you all revved up. You're in the zone. You did your warm up. Let's roll.
Yes, let's rock and roll. It's been a long time. Okay. It's been a long time.
Hit this drum.
Let's not do that. So go ahead. Recite some more Led Zeppelin 4 lyrics, and have a lovely day, Ben. I will see you next week.
And a lovely weekend.
Yeah. All right. Bye, Ben.
Bye, Carl.